All right, I'm back. So, I want to try and hopefully get to the point a little bit quicker. Because, again, I know it's not always interesting to hear someone else's story being dragged out. And I really try my best not to do that. But of course, it's also how I am able to get to the point that I'm trying to make. So, with all that said, um, you know, it has been a wild last several weeks, months, etc. And, you know, earlier this year, beginning of this year, 2025, I was, feeling a little more motivated, but there was still this feeling of like anger and kind of like resentment and fear and frustration and confusion surrounding like my life, and I know it's all a part of this process of like cleansing the slate. So I'm starting basically from square one, which has been actually really scary, because again, um, I don't know what direction to take. And like even recording these videos, I have been going back and forth. Like, am I supposed to keep doing this? Because I just was not having that inspiration. And I was starting to get a little afraid that I was gonna have to pursue something entirely different. But again, it's like I feel good about it one day, and then the next day it's like utter chaos. And anyway, so you know, even like my tarot readings and the things that I do for myself, nothing that I used to do has felt good or like it's actually helping me. It only ends up creating more confusion and fear, which could be a Pisces thing, but I think it's also just part of this process. So, anyways, I've been getting this message that, like, there's this perspective that I need to shift, but I was kind of viewing it more from like more of the physical 3D stuff, like whether it was like maybe I was supposed to go get a corporate job or whatever, and maybe I'm supposed to just throw everything that I've been working towards out the window and start fresh, which again is scary, especially for somebody who has felt like they've always had a sense of direction with their life, even if, yeah, just in general. So, but I just couldn't make any sense of it. And it was just leading to more, again, frustration and anger and fear and just, and I was just trying to hold on to hope and trying to stay positive, but then also knowing that I needed to feel whatever I was feeling. But again, like it was so weird. And I'm hoping that whoever is going to watch this or whoever is drawn to this will have an idea of what I'm talking about, because this isn't just like the basic, like, well, what job do I get kind of a thing. This is about like my mission, my life's mission, my life's purpose of helping to uplift humanity. And anyways, okay, so last night, or yesterday I went out and I started like asking different places about like work and jobs and whatever, and got like a lead or two, but nothing official. And anyways, so I get home, kind of do my thing, I end up crying again, working on my resume, doing all this other stuff. And then eventually when I'm going to bed, I pull out this book that I just started reading, to help me maybe try and like understand tarot from a like more historical, psychological, philosophical level, not just like a here's what this could mean, and it's called 78 Degrees of Wisdom, a tarot to self-awareness. And it's actually really interesting. And I mean, I'm still just getting into it, but what led to this revelation that came through like last night was I was reading about the High Priestess, which is number 2 in the major arcana, for those who don't know. And there was this one paragraph on like page 36, like third paragraph down, where actually I'll just read it real quick. It's like, it was talking about how at a different point in like the 1200s, like 1281, the religious groups like Christianity, Catholicism, and like Judaism were, there was talk about like a female pope, a female papist, whatever. Anyway, so ultimately it gets to this part where it's like, It says the images and the concepts associated with the masculine role had dominated both the church and Jewish religion for centuries. As a result, ordinary people experienced the religions of the priests and rabbis as remote, harsh, and unapproachable, with their emphasis on sin, judgment, and punishment. They wanted qualities of mercy and love. And it was just those last two sentences where it was like, it finally clicked what has been going on. Because I have been part of this fear, and this like confusion has stemmed from this place of like wondering if I'm being punished for, because things are difficult right now and nothing's come through and I'm feeling like so confused and whatever. Like, it was all stemming with this underlying fear of like punishment, from the divine and whatnot. And it was so, why that was so profound. It's like, that's not like a new concept to me, like it's actually one of the pillars as to why I left like Catholicism in general. I was raised Catholic. I went to Catholic school for the first up until fifth grade. Up until fifth grade. And I actually like persuaded my parents to let me leave and go to public school because of, so many things, but because of this, my just disagreements, I guess, with the way the church was, and the rules and the restrictions and the repression and all this different stuff, but specifically around, because I just noticed all these hypocrisies within the church from a very young age. I think around like 5 or 6 was when I first started noticing things, specifically around, they preach about this all-loving, all-knowing, all-powerful God, yet they are warning us about sin and punishment and being burned in hell for eternity or whatever, and I'm like, those two concepts don't align, because if he is all loving, why would he force us and send us away to a place where we will just burn for all eternity? Like, again, from a very young mind, that was my way of kind of processing that. And it's something that I've been like very aware of, and something I've spoken about to many people, and throughout my life, about the hypocrisies and the kind of the disconnects between what they say God is and then what they're like trying to scare us or warn us about, which, from my perspective is just, religion was man-made. Let's put it that way. Okay. It was man-influenced. It was, men, women, but men mostly, especially back when it all started. And if you were human, you have an ego. You have your own self-interest. You have your own desires. It's literally our innate drive to survive, to thrive, to manifest our wants and our desires in whatever form that comes. So, that was another one of those things where I was like, why, the Bible was man written, and then let's throw in the whole kind of translation, lost in translation process. And also, like, again, if there are certain rulers or leaders in the religious community who want to promote a certain dogma around, in a sense, to try and control and manipulate the masses in order for them to get what they wanted, like, who's to say that what we're reading, how much of that is actually truth? And again, I'm going to go into more of that stuff like in future episodes, I realize, but like, let me see if I can get back to where I was. So, the whole point being, though, is that like, there's not a single religious leader, ruler, guru, whatever, throughout all of history, all of mankind history, that is truly speaking from a place of just selflessness. Now, there might be some, you know what I'm saying? It's not that they're all that way. And I do think that there have been some shifts and changes within like the Catholic Church specifically since I was growing up, since I was a little kid. But again, that's not the point. The point is that the church I grew up in was like, scaring you into and like forcing this idea that like you were born into sin, you're going to sin, and if you sin, if you don't seek forgiveness, you will be punished, you know? Hence reconciliation, or even in like Judaism, atonement, Yom Kippur. But with the Catholic Church, you know, it's not an annual holiday or an annual time of atonement. They actually like encourage you to go literally every day if you want. And anyway, so you know, I'm having all these thoughts, and like and it took me back to when I did have to go through first reconciliation as a kid. And I remember just being like, I don't want to do that. Like, why do I have to go to a priest, a man, you know, a human, let me say a human, but why do I have to go to another human to communicate with God? You know, if God is all knowing, okay? And again, this was also during a time where like the Catholic Church was dealing with a lot of issues around like, you know, priests molesting boys and children and whatever. Now, thankfully, it was just 11/11, whatever that means. But thankfully, the church that I grew up in never had that, from my understanding. And truly, if I like really think back to it, like we were really fortunate to have the priests and the Monsignor that we did, like, because they were, you could feel their kindness and their love, you know. But again, it's the whole kind of religious sect that I was not identifying with. And anyway, so I remember we were sitting down being prepared for like our first reconciliation, and Father Richard was one of the younger priests that had come in, and he was kind of talking to us all about it. And like I said, I remember sitting there just like, I don't want to do this. Like, why do I have to do this? You know? And of course, me and my little, like, kind of, I'll say calculating, but like, yeah, calculating mind for my own self-interest and my own needs. I was just like, you know, how do I get out of this? You know, like, and not like in a, like, I don't want to seek forgiveness, but it was from a place where like, how do I not have to go to somebody else to confess my sins and then be told to go do this, you know, say 10 Hail Marys or whatever, and you're good, you know? Like, so I remember raising my hand. I was scared, you know, because like I knew what I was asking, what I was about to ask wasn't necessarily going to, it could have gone many ways. So anyways, but I was trying to figure out, how can I ask this without him knowing that like I'm basically trying to find a way out of going to confession. And I raised my hand. Again, I think I was like, must have been in first grade, because I think that's when that happens, first grade. And I asked Father Richard, and I just said, I was like, so what if you can't make it to confession, you know, every day, every week, whatever? Like, what if you just can't make it? And it's funny because like this is such a visceral, vivid, like a vivid memory in my mind. It's one of those kind of imprinted memories in my mind because of the profound impact it had on my whole life, soul, spiritual journey. But so I asked him that, and I remember he kind of stopped where he was. He was like over to the side. I was sitting like over here, and he kind of walks over to me and kind of leans down and leans in towards me, and he said, if you are truly sorry for what you did, God will forgive you. And I was just like, oh my God, like it was just the simplest but the most beautiful, profound response that he could have given me. He didn't say anything else, just that. And that was all I needed to know, that like that I could receive forgiveness through my own direct communication with the divine. Now, again, I'm bringing this all up because it was such a profound experience for me, and a profound memory that, like I said, from that point on, I think I did the reconciliation once, and then maybe once after that with like my family or whatever, and then I've never been ever since then, however long ago that has been. So but again, so this, let's bring it back to what I've been dealing with. And I have been acting and operating from this place of fear around being punished for maybe past decisions or for not being responsible and all this different stuff, um and what it, let me see, sorry, something distracted me. And what was so wild, let me say two different things. So first of all, what I'm realizing is that, like, this is all a part of this, like, final, like, kind of like really things I like, belief systems and mindsets that I need to fully release in order to level up completely. But what's interesting is I didn't realize how much that was still influencing me, like, even though I was fully aware of all this, all of the, the mistruths and the dogmas and the manipulated teachings that have happened throughout history and in specifically Catholicism. But I didn't realize I was still operating from that place, like, still allowing those thoughts and those fears of, like, punishment and judgment to still play out, and still kind of dictate my decisions. So, I mean, I have so much I want to say. I kind of went all over the place with this, but it was just this really beautiful, profound aha realization moment, because, like, I finally understood the perspective shift that I have been guided to shift. It was right. It was literally, it was in my face, in my mind, like right at the tip of my tongue, but I wasn't able to actually get to that perspective shift until I read that. And then it just all was like, oh my God, it just, like, until I read that book and those sentences, and then it all just made sense. That's what has been still guiding my choices and my life recently, and I've been hearing too, another, like, tarot readings and stuff, which again still haven't resonated as much, but I've been hearing more about father wounds lately, which before it was like strictly mother wounds, like issues with that, which when the father wounds thing came up, I was just like, I mean, yeah, sure, there's stuff, but, like, right now, I feel like, if anything, my dad and I have a pretty good relationship. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's pretty good. But I think it's deeper than just, like, the direct relationship with my specific father. I think it's the concept that, again, Catholicism and other religions have spouted about God being male and masculine, and in those eras and throughout history, the father figure has always been kind of this remote, harsh disciplinarian. That was always the concept around that archetype, and let's see, where am I going? And so, yeah, I guess I kind of realized that, like, that is part of this mindset that's been, like, plaguing me, is that, like, even though I know God is not male or female, God is period. Male, female, God's everything. You know what I'm saying? Because we are all individual sparks from the Creator. But there was still this, like, this underlying fear that has just been deep seated within me, that like if you make a mistake, you will be punished, or if you make a mistake, you have to deal with the consequences, which, in my mind, the way consequences have been presented, it's usually something you don't want to deal with. That's kind of the common understanding when somebody says consequences, or that's the belief that people, like, that's how people view it, as consequences being a negative thing, rather than, just the effect of, some kind of cause or action, and which could go positively or negatively. But okay, let's see. So yeah, but then I was like, okay, well, how do I shift this? Like, what do I need to do to get out of this, like this mindset and this space? And I was like, well, one thing, I need to kind of like reparent my inner child to from a kind of a divine masculine side. And it's like, what does a balanced, healthy, divine masculine energy father figure do and look like, And, it was kind of late last night and I was tired. So I just kind of like jotted things down and then knew I was going to focus on it, like go into it a little bit further this morning. But, let me see if I can find where I wrote it. And it's just like, yeah, sorry guys. Okay, so let me just kind of read what I wrote, like, because it all ties into what I was saying before about this all-knowing, all-loving, all-powerful creator, divine creator. I said, no matter what we do, God will never punish us. It's us who punish ourselves mentally and karmically for these things. The Creator loves each and every one of us exactly as we are, because we are all pieces of them/it. God knows that even if we commit the most heinous crimes, it's not something to be punished for. It's actually a reason to send us even more love and compassion, because the ones who do this need the most love and guidance, the most rehabilitation. Punishment only creates more wounding and trauma. The only way to heal those wounds and trauma is through love. That is how a balanced parent, masculine and feminine, handle these situations, with a firm yet gentle, loving and understanding perspective. And again, that's why, again, religious dogma has been so confusing and is influenced so many of us, despite us recognizing these kind of hypocrisies within it, or these kind of conflicting ideas, because that was like what I just wrote, that is also the God that I was kind of raised to believe in, so really what it comes down to is this whole concept of sins and punishment and judgment is coming from the human egoic mind, and again, it's coming from that person within judging and, punishing themselves, 2255. But then it's also coming from this place of feeling like others need to be judged and punished because it makes someone else feel better or stronger or more in control and whatever. So really what it all comes down to, anything involving punishment, sin, judgment, etc., is bullshit, they say the only person who can judge you is God, but the thing is, God isn't judging you, okay? That's another one of those kind of human misconceptions. I'm not saying go out and commit awful, atrocious, heinous crimes. You know what I'm saying? Because here's the thing, it comes back to what I said earlier. You're actually just punishing yourself. You know what I'm saying? You're only going to create more issues, more challenges, more karma for yourself by doing that. This is really, this whole experience of life on earth is about us choosing to be better for ourselves, which in turn makes us better for the world around us, which again in turn makes the world a much better place to live in. It really is it's not a punishment to come here, it's a gift to come here. It's not a punishment if you make a mistake. You're not going to be punished if you make a mistake, or you do some kind of imbalanced act that has negative effects on somebody else. Now, again, because the divine and God are love. That's it. That's all it is. They are true love. They are so understanding. They are so patient. They are so kind. They are so loving, even to, again, the most heinous acts and crimes. which I know is hard for us to believe because, again, like as a human, we see those things and we're just like appalled by it. But that's also, again, our human perspective on it, because the divine and God, they know that, like, the people who commit those things have some of the deepest traumas and wounds that need to be healed, that need to be balanced. And I'm not saying, let people go scot-free, but like, rather than trying to, punish them with, like, in the same form that they punished others, it's about like rehabilitation, and about, maybe withdrawing them from society, but again, from a place of like trying to understand why they did what they did and what stemmed from their wounds and their traumas growing up. Like, where did that come from? And then from there to try and offer them some form of like healing and personal internal reconciliation within themselves, to ultimately help shift them out of it, and help them understand why what they did ultimately is not the way to be. Now, again, my mind wants to go into kind of the other stuff of like kind of the way, what I believe the way life on earth works, like, and this has always been kind of like a hard concept to fully like ingest and like accept, but like there are times where certain people are brought to earth to be that negative kind of heinous influence, in order for us to be able to choose to see and then to choose differently. So there are some people who have come to this earth to be that villain, like that true villain, who is like controlling, manipulating, repressing, suppressing people, societies, etc. But again, that's not like that's not a ticket to just like, just run a total muck, but that is kind of a different understanding, a higher perspective understanding that I think is difficult for a lot of humans to wrap their heads around, especially when it has a direct influence on them. But again, that's part of this whole kind of earth school, earth process. We've all come here to learn lessons, and the only way you can learn lessons is by generally seeing what you don't want in the world, to have that contrast, to see what you don't want in order to know what you do want, and then to be able to go after it and to be able to choose it and choose that for yourself. So I know that, like, for those who are in that higher kind of realm of consciousness, you already know this, but I think that is something that is going to be so important for the rest of the world to understand at some point, and it's something I've known that I've wanted to share, and I have movie ideas and some movie ideas of kind of explaining that in a way that they can digest that, but and even screenplay or TV show ideas. I've got a lot of kind of entertainment based focused concepts about doing that, but I think for now, again, me just recording this and putting this out there is like one of the first steps, to put it out into the consciousness physically, rather than just thinking about it and talking about it in my own mind and in my own personal conversations. But yeah, so I think a lot of us are still kind of, whether we are like consciously aware of it or not, I think a lot of us are still kind of operating in that place of even just like really subconsciously, like deep within this place of like this fear of when things aren't going our way, that it's because we're being punished for past mistakes, past decisions, etc. And it was just, I think what was so like interesting / frustrating was that, again, I knew this stuff, in the sense, like, I'd already worked through this stuff in so many ways, and I'd been in a place for many years where, like, every single thing that happened, I was able to transmute and understand that, like, this is all a part of the higher divine plan. There's a lesson here for me to learn. There's something for me to grow from, you know? Like, that was my natural state for years. So I think that's where, like, a lot of that fear and anxiety and confusion was really, like, amping up, because it was like, it was so difficult for me to view this whole situation from that higher perspective, you know? And and it also just shows, again, and I've mentioned it before, like others have, you know, this healing process is like layer by layer. Like you might peel back one massive layer and be good for a while, but then when you are trying to level up to a new place, a new energetic frequency, like you find out that there's something even deeper sitting within you, you know? And again, I know this is all coming up because A, it was still within me to some extent. You know, I was still kind of operating from that place at times. But B, I also do really feel like that is kind of part of my family karma, family curse, you know, of this belief that, you know, if things don't go your way, it's because you're being punished by God, or that you've been abandoned by God, or that you're just not a good person, or something like that. So yeah, all I'll say is that I'm just so incredibly grateful to have had that revelation and that clarity come through last night, and then to be able to come out here and to record something for the first time in like a week plus. And honestly, you know, what came through as well was just like this reminder of like, that's kind of, this is like some of the stuff that I have known I'm meant to kind of share. It's like breaking down all this religious dogma that has controlled the masses for eons, you know, and kind of helping to shift that perspective around that and provide more of the real truth and the real clarity within it. Because for me, honestly, and I'll go into it at another time, I think the number one, and really the only true commandment that there is the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have done to you. Period. If that's all you ever take away from any kind of like religious guideline or rule, that will set you up for life. Period. It's the simplest one. All the other stuff is just kind of like more specific details, like, you know, because again, these commandments came at a time where that stuff was truly running wild, running amok, okay? You know, like, was it Babylon, where, you know, like it was like, you know, anyways, I'm not going to get into that because that actually leads me, like, I don't think all of that was necessarily as bad, but again, this was coming from a period where there were no rules. It was like a lawless, like Wild West, so to speak, of like, if you had money and power, you could basically do what you wanted to whoever you wanted, and there were very few morals and values that were being not only shared, but like embodied. So, but again, if the only rule that ever, guideline that should ever, honestly, that you ever really need to think about is that one, the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have done to you. Because again, if you love yourself, or if you care about yourself, or if you want to feel good or safe or happy or this or that, and you treat others in that way, that sets you up in so many ways, you know. And I've actually had this belief, and I'm going to go into it later too, but you know, the golden rule is really like a simple religious perspective of like the law of attraction, you know, where it is that what you do, what you reap, you sow, in essence, you know. So it's that guideline that helps you attract what you want to attract into your life, by doing good, by treating yourself with love and respect, and then treating others with love and respect, that is what you will get back. You know, it's really like that fucking simple. You know, so yeah, I'm gonna end it with that. Again, I'm just glad to get back here and record something, and you know, we'll see where this all goes, where everything kind of takes me right now. I'm really having to just surrender and like trust this process, despite how like painful and scary it has been. And again, you know, I'm still just so dedicated and focused and determined to help others see the truth with more simplicity and clarity, you know. So yeah, so wherever you are, whatever you're doing, keep holding on, keep staying strong, and we will get to the other side.